The day I was supposed to fly home, the airline staff told me there was an issue with my checked luggage. They escorted me to a private waiting room, but instead of my suitcase, the room was filled with dozens of red roses. In the center of it all, a man I once knew knelt on one knee, holding out a ring. His eyes were fixed on me with an expression of deep affection. Members of the Vance family who'd arranged this ambush started cheering and yelling, "Marry him! Say yes!" Anyone watching would have expected me to burst into tears and accept. After all, Daniel Vance was the man I had chased for 5 years, a pursuit that I thought had finally ended in success. But everyone seemed to have conveniently forgotten what happened 3 years ago. During a promotion review, Daniel had publicly accused me of plagiarizing a paper from his junior colleague. Not long after, he reported me for causing a medical accident because he claimed I had been drinking. I was dismissed from the hospital unceremoniously, then immediately assaulted by a patient's grieving family members who had been stirred up by the news. With no professional prospects left and my reputation in tatters, I had no choice but to leave the country to try and build a new life. Now his father, Mr. Vance, was telling me, "After you left, Clara, Daniel spent all of his savings to settle that malpractice lawsuit for you. He's been waiting for you to come back all these years." He squeezed my hand for emphasis. "He was always clutching your photograph and crying." I stayed quiet, my hand instinctively going to the bag on my shoulder, where my own marriage certificate was safely tucked away. "That accident was such a huge mess back then," Mr. Vance continued, his tone shifting from pleading to scolding. "You should have given him some time to handle it. How could you just run off in a tantrum, Clara? Because you left without a word, Daniel hasn't been able to eat or sleep properly these past 3 years. He's practically turned the whole city upside down looking for you." It had been years since I'd last seen him, and he had aged. The sharp, judgmental look he used to give me when he thought I wasn't good enough for his son was gone, replaced by a weary desperation. Yet his words were just as cutting as I remembered. He was supposedly describing his son's devotion, but all I heard was a litany of accusations against me. To be honest, hearing Daniel's name again felt strange, almost foreign. 3 years is more than enough time for things to fade, especially a past that wasn't worth remembering. From the way they were all talking, it was clear they had no idea that I was already married. I gently pulled my hand away from Mr. Vance's grasp, keeping my expression neutral. "Uncle," I said, using the old familiar term, "Daniel and I ended things 3 years ago. I don't understand why you're telling me all of this." The Vance family members all stared at me, their faces masks of disbelief. They clearly hadn't expected this kind of response from me. I was the girl who had once followed Daniel around like a shadow. I had even turned down a prestigious position at University Central Hospital to work at the smaller municipal hospital where he was, just so I could be closer to him and take better care of him. Being a doctor is a demanding job, but I still made sure he had 3 meals a day to ease his workload. I would volunteer to assist in his surgeries, even when I was so exhausted from my own that I could barely stand. To help him advance his career, I even put his name on my research papers as the lead author. To keep up with my own work, I had to stay up late every night burning the midnight oil until I was pale and gaunt. But when Daniel finally proposed, none of that sacrifice seemed to matter anymore. It all felt worthwhile. After that, I would always find a cup of coffee on my desk when I returned to my office, with a little note attached filled with his affectionate words. When difficult patients harassed me, he would always step in to handle the situation. As our wedding date got closer, he would sit with me at the computer, helping me choose venues and plan our honeymoon. When we were both swamped with work, he argued with the hospital director for me, just so I could have time off to try on my wedding dress. I remember how his eyes were filled with such tenderness as he watched me spin around on the platform in the bridal shop. The sales assistant even commented that they'd never seen a couple as sweet as us. At that time, I truly believed I must have done something wonderful in a past life to deserve him. That all changed the day the hospital hired a new junior doctor named Sarah Jennings. From that day on, Daniel never mentioned our wedding again. The morning coffee on my desk disappeared. At first, I told myself he was just busy helping his new subordinate get settled and had forgotten. I didn't want to bother him. But then the wedding venue called, informing me that Daniel needed to come in personally to finalize some details. I finally went and knocked on his office door. When I explained the situation, he sighed with impatience. What a hassle, he muttered, telling me to just go in his place. But when I got there, the event coordinator handed me two separate agreements. One had my name on it, the other had Sarah Jennings' name. The groom's name on both was Daniel Vance. My hands, clutching the papers, started to sweat. I tried to reassure myself that it had to be a coincidence, just someone with the same name. But when I returned to the hospital, I saw a group of colleagues gathered around Sarah's desk, holding wedding candies and congratulating her. Daniel was leaning against a nearby wall, his gaze fixed tenderly on her as she laughed with the crowd. In that moment, it felt like a scalpel had been driven straight into my chest. The pain was so sharp I couldn't breathe. He turned and saw the shock and hurt in my eyes, but his expression didn't change. There wasn't a hint of concern. He just said coolly, "You signed it already." I walked over to him, holding up the two documents. "Which one are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Mine or Sarah's?" Hearing my question, Daniel frowned. "Let's talk about this at home. I'll explain everything. Everyone's having a good time right now. Don't say something inappropriate and ruin the mood." I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Inappropriate? Ruin the mood? I couldn't believe that the same man who had been whispering sweet nothings to me in bed just days ago was now standing here, humiliating me. My reaction must have stung him, because a flicker of guilt crossed his face, and his tone softened. "I didn't mean to be so harsh. Don't overthink it. I have another surgery to get to. I'll come to your office when I'm done, okay, Clara?" He reached out to gently pat my arm. I pulled away, wiping a tear from my eye before turning to leave. "Fine," I said, my voice flat. He raised his hand as if to stop me, but then let it fall. Back in my office, I stared at a patient's chart, the words blurring together. I don't know how long I sat there before there was finally a knock on the door. "Come in." Daniel entered, holding a cup of coffee. "Brought this for you. I heard you have a surgery later. This should help." I glanced at the cup. The side where he used to stick his notes was blank. I just gave a small hum of acknowledgement. "Sarah is my junior from college," he began to explain. "Her family is very traditional and has been pressuring her to get married. A couple of days ago, her mom threatened to kill herself to force her. So, she asked me to do her a favor. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd read too much into it." I took a slow sip of the coffee and listened. "So, you two got married?" I asked quietly. Daniel hesitated for a second before nodding. Afraid I would press him further, he rushed to add, "Don't worry. As soon as I go back with her and meet her parents, we'll get a divorce. Sarah isn't the type to cause trouble. She's already agreed to it." He sounded so sincere, but the whole story was just too absurd for me to accept. Seeing that I wasn't responding, he pulled a small box from the pocket of his white coat and knelt on one knee. "Trust me, Clara," he said, looking straight into my eyes. "You're the only one I love. I know I've wronged you with this, but once it's over, I'll make it up to you with the grandest wedding you can imagine." Before I could say no, he slipped a diamond ring onto my finger and put a matching one on his own. As I stared at the sparkling ring, the heavy weight in my chest seemed to lighten just a little. Maybe he really was just helping a friend, but in the days that followed, he never wore his ring again, always using the excuse that he had to perform surgery. He and Sarah were constantly together, acting like a real couple. In meetings, in the hallways, even in the cafeteria, they were inseparable. They became the hospital's golden couple, while I became the subject of gossip. Some colleagues started calling me his jilted ex-fiancée. Others spread rumors that I was a mistress trying to break them up. Just as I was about to set the record straight, Sarah showed up at my office. She walked toward me with her hands in her pockets, an arrogant smirk on her face. "Dr. Burke," she said, "Daniel is my husband. I hope you'll stop trying to get his attention from now on. He told me everything about how you forced him into a relationship with you. It's no wonder a love gained through such desperate means is so weak. Do the right thing and resign." My fingernails dug into my palms as I clenched my fists, but I kept my voice even. "Miss Jennings, I have no intention of resigning. And since you're not my superior, you have no authority to fire me." Sarah didn't get angry, she just laughed, crossing her arms over her chest. "Oh, really? Well, let's just make a bet on how you'll be leaving this hospital. I didn't respond, simply gesturing for her to leave. That same day, I told Daniel what had happened. To my shock, he didn't believe me. Instead, he scolded me. I already told you I would divorce her. Why can't you just let it go? Now you're making up these ridiculous lies. She forced you to resign? Logically, it would make more sense for you to be the one forcing her to leave. Clara, stop making trouble. All I want to do right now is focus on my career. If you can't help me like you used to, at least don't make things more difficult for me, okay? I hung up the phone, took the ring off my finger, and threw it into a drawer. Daniel was right. My career should come first. I decided to put our relationship on the back burner. For years, I had let my own ambitions stagnate because I was so focused on him. It was time to change that. I threw myself into preparing for the annual medical board certification exam. In the following weeks, Daniel never contacted me and I didn't reach out to him. We would sometimes pass each other in the hospital corridors, but we walked by like strangers. Finally, the day the exam results were announced, Director Miller slammed his fist on the conference room table in a rage. The research papers submitted by Sarah and me were identical word for word. Faced with the accusation of plagiarism, I wasn't nervous. My skills and knowledge were far superior to hers, and I knew it. But no one in that room believed me. They showed me a phone. It turned out Sarah had been posting daily updates about her thesis progress on her social media accounts for weeks. My colleagues had, in essence, witnessed her writing the paper. Instantly, I was bombarded with insults and accusations. I looked past them all, my gaze landing on the man standing at the very back of the room, Daniel. He deliberately avoided my eyes, and that small movement confirmed my deepest fear. The only person in the world who knew my computer password was him. The password itself was his birthday. The evidence was damning, and Director Miller demoted me on the spot. I ignored him, pushing through the crowd until I was standing in front of Daniel. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Daniel, I asked, my voice low and clear, do you also think I plagiarized? I saw the hesitation in his eyes before it dissolved into a single devastating word. Yes. I let out a soft, humorless laugh and dropped my hands. As I turned to leave, my eyes were so red they felt like they could bleed. I heard him call my name softly behind me, but I didn't stop. I walked straight out of that meeting room without a backward glance. From that day forward, my colleagues started to avoid me completely. No one wanted to be associated with a plagiarist and a homewrecker. I didn't get angry. I just put my head down and worked, shuttling between my office and the operating room. A demotion was just a setback. I could work my way back up. Until the day Director Miller threw a formal complaint letter in my face. Someone had reported me for performing surgery while under the influence of alcohol, resulting in a fatal medical accident. For a moment, my mind went blank. It felt like everyone was speaking a language I couldn't understand. Director, you must be mistaken, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That patient had congenital hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He was already beyond saving when he was brought in. The director didn't answer. He just called in a witness, the anesthesiologist from that surgery, who also happened to be Sarah's best friend. Director, she's Sarah's best friend, I pleaded. Sarah has held a grudge against me for a long time. It's possible she and her friend framed me. Enough! A voice boomed from the doorway. It was Daniel. He stormed into the room, looking at me with absolute disgust. What grudge? It's clearly your one-sided hatred for her that's the problem. You're the one harming her, Clara. I thought you were just jealous, but I never imagined you would go this far. Do you have any idea how serious it is to start rumors about medical disputes? I can't believe you would gamble with a patient's life. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be a doctor, and you certainly don't deserve to be my wife. I froze, 1,000 needles seeming to pierce my throat. After a long moment of silence, I finally found my voice. Daniel, I said, the words barely a whisper. In your heart, am I really the kind of person who would kill a patient out of jealousy? He took a deep, shuddering breath, his gaze dark and unreadable. Or what? I saw it myself. The refrigerator at our home was full of liquor bottles. One sentence and my fate was sealed. The director issued my termination notice on the spot as my colleagues muttered scornful words around me. I walked out of the hospital in a daze. Before I could even reach the main entrance, I was knocked to the ground. It was the patient's family. "You deserve to die. Why did you kill my son?" a woman screamed, kicking me repeatedly and slapping me hard across the face. My vision started to blur, but through the haze, I could see Daniel standing at the reception desk. He gave me a single fleeting glance before turning and stepping into the elevator. Security guards eventually pulled the woman off me, but it was too late. My wrist was severely injured. It wasn't completely useless, but the damage meant I could no longer perform the high-precision surgeries my career depended on. With a medical malpractice suit ruining my record, my prospects in the city were gone. Under constant harassment from the deceased patient's family, I fled the country. Just before my plane took off, a text message from Daniel popped up on my phone. "What does the ring in the drawer mean? Are you still holding a grudge? I wasn't refusing to help you last time, I just wanted you to reflect on your actions. Go be a good doctor at another hospital, stop messing around." And bringing my thoughts back to the present, I looked at Mr. Vance and spoke earnestly. "Please don't bother me anymore. I have no connection with Daniel or with your family." Old Mr. Vance seemed not to hear me, continuing his sales pitch. "Daniel's surgery just finished and he's on his way here now. I forgot to tell you, after you left, he got a transfer to University Central Hospital. He's the youngest department head there now, earning millions a year. You'll never meet another man as successful as him if you miss this chance." Hearing this, I couldn't stop a small laugh from escaping. I raised my left hand, showing them the simple but elegant diamond ring on my finger. "I forgot to mention," I said calmly, "I'm already married." I glanced at the diamond. Also, this ring probably cost more than Daniel's salary for 2 years. As soon as I said it, the room fell completely silent. The first to recover was Daniel's sister, Jessica. She let out a cold, disbelieving laugh. "How could you possibly be married? Didn't you used to say you would only love my brother for the rest of your life? That ring of yours must be a cheap fake from a street market. Who knows, it might even taste sweet if you licked it." Mr. Vance also snapped out of his shock, his brow furrowed with disapproval. "Clara, this isn't something to joke about. You don't need to resort to these kinds of tricks. Daniel is a forgiving man. He's already forgiven you. Just nod your head when he gets here and you can marry into our family and never have to worry about anything again. If it weren't for my son being so infatuated with you, I would never want you as my daughter-in-law." Listening to his harsh words, I felt nothing at all. I simply glanced at my watch. Leo was probably about to arrive and I needed to get out of there. His public profile meant he couldn't linger at the airport for too long. My casual gesture seemed to annoy them. "Look at her," Jessica sneered. "Acting all tough, but she's clearly just dying for my brother to arrive. The thought of having you as a sister-in-law makes me sick. I still miss Sarah. I have no idea why Daniel broke up with her." She crossed her arms, looking at me with the same provocative stare Sarah used to give me. No wonder they got along, but none of it mattered to me anymore. It was time to go. "Sorry, everyone. I have to go now." With that, I turned to leave, only to find someone standing motionless in the doorway. It was Daniel. His white coat was still stained with a bit of blood. He had clearly rushed here straight from surgery. He had lost weight. The past 3 years hadn't been easy for him, it seemed. He let go of the doorknob and raised a hand to touch my cheek, his gesture so gentle and careful. "Clara," he whispered, "I miss you so much." I stepped back, avoiding his touch. My tone was polite but cold. "It's been a long time, Daniel." The hope that had just lit up in his eyes vanished instantly. His voice trembled slightly. "How can you speak to me in that tone? Are you still blaming me?" I shook my head, my patience wearing thin. "Daniel, what would I blame you for? For stealing my research and giving it to Sarah?" At the mention of her name, a flash of panic crossed his face. "I was wrong about that," he admitted quickly. "But I was just trying to help you. Sarah told me that you had been performing surgery while drunk, and that if I didn't help her get that promotion, she would report you to the police. So I gave a small, knowing smile. So that was his excuse. Help me? What did I do wrong that required your help? You should have let her report me. At least then I wouldn't have been ruined by a fool like you. Don't apologize to me because I won't accept it. A delayed apology is meaningless. Daniel, I'm not someone who lives in the past. 3 years have gone by. Whatever I felt for you, whether it was love or hate, it's all over. A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes. He didn't seem to understand what I was saying. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I walked straight towards the door, but he grabbed my wrist, his grip tight. The old injury throbbed with a dull ache. You can't be over it, he said, his voice suddenly loud, startling everyone in the room. Realizing he'd raised his voice, he quickly softened his tone. You can't be, Clara. Can we please start over? He pulled a ring box from his pocket. The diamond inside was much bigger and flashier than the last one. You didn't like the one I gave you before, so I bought you a bigger one this time. Will you? No, I said calmly. His eyes filled with a deep sorrow, but before he could speak, his family couldn't hold back any longer. Daniel, why are you being so humble? It's her loss if she rejects you. Yeah, brother, why does it have to be her? It's not like she's some princess. Enough, Daniel snapped, turning to glare at them. He then glanced back at me cautiously, relaxing only when he saw I hadn't reacted. I brought you here to help me win her back, not to make things worse. She's the only one I will ever marry. The room fell silent again. Mr. Vance stormed out in anger. Daniel paid him no mind and turned back to me. If you don't like this one, we can go to the store and pick one out together. You're overthinking it, I said simply. My hand just can't wear a ring from you anymore. Daniel, I'm married. Hearing this, he staggered back a step and the ring box slipped from his hand, clattering to the floor. Married? How is that possible? It's only been 3 years. How could you? Stop joking, Clara. This isn't funny. You can't be serious about something like marriage. You're just lying to me to make me upset, right? Right? Looking at the desperation and pain in his eyes, I felt a strange sense of detachment. I had never seen him look at anyone with that expression before. The Daniel I knew was always so confident, so unattainable, always looking down on everyone else. He had never appeared so vulnerable. Clara, I already accepted your proposal back then. Why did you go back on your word? Hearing him accuse me of going back on my word, I couldn't help but laugh. I went back on my word, Daniel? Wasn't it you who treated marriage like a joke and married someone else behind my back? His body went stiff. He reached out and grabbed my arm again, explaining hurriedly. We got divorced not long after you left. Nothing ever happened between us, I swear, believe me. I shook his hand off, my patience completely gone. Enough! I don't care about any of that. My husband has been waiting for me for a long time, and I need to go. As for you, I'm quite traditional. I wouldn't marry a divorced man. With that, I walked out and closed the door behind me. He chased after me, grabbing my wrist again. Clara, have you had enough of this? He pleaded. My voice was ice cold when I replied, Have you had enough of this tantrum? He flinched and withdrew his hand as if he'd been burned, muttering a quiet apology. I ignored him and kept walking. I could hear the heavy sound of his footsteps following me. I sighed, let him follow if he wanted to. I never realized he could be so persistent. I pulled out my phone and saw several missed calls. Oh no, Leo was going to be dramatic about this. I was about to call him back when I saw a tall man in a beige trench coat walking slowly towards me, holding a small baby against his chest. He was wearing a mask and a hat that covered most of his face, but from his posture and the confident way he carried himself, it was obvious he was someone special. Even the baby in his arms seemed to have a certain star quality. Wow, quick, take a picture, I heard a girl whisper nearby. Who is that? He's more handsome than an actual movie star. That little baby is so cute. His mom must have saved the galaxy in her past life. Wherever he went, people turned to stare, but his eyes were only on me. Darling, he said, his voice a mix of 99% grievance and 1% charm. Why didn't you answer my calls? I was worried sick. Under the astonished gazes of everyone around us, I stood on my tiptoes and playfully tapped his head. Didn't I tell you not to bring Ben out? He's still so little. Leo was about to retort when our son let out a soft, happy coo. Mama. It was the first time he had said it. I was so stunned, I just stood there, frozen. This gave Leo the perfect opening to shift the blame. See? He said quickly. He's the one who insisted on coming. I laughed and gave Leo a light punch on the chest. He caught my hand and brought it to his face, nuzzling it. Honey, I missed you so much. Even though I couldn't see his face clearly, I could hear the smile in his voice. My ears grew warm. After all these years, Leo could still make me blush. If his fans ever found out that the stoic, serious Oscar-winning actor Leo Hayes was actually a clingy romantic in private, they would lose their minds. Seeing my reaction, Leo seemed even more pleased and wrapped an arm around my waist. Let's go. You haven't been home in so long. I had Aunt Preston cook all your favorite Sichuan dishes. I had just taken a step when a loud voice shouted from behind me, Clara Burke! The sudden noise startled Ben, and he began to cry. I quickly picked up the pacifier he'd dropped and tried to soothe him. Leo pulled a small bell from his pocket and jingled it in front of the baby. Little one, look what I have! Ben just cried louder. I snatched the bell away and smacked Leo on the head with it. I told you that trick wouldn't work. Give him to me. Leo pouted as he unbuckled the baby carrier and handed Ben over. I took him carefully, rocking him gently in my arms. Shh, little treasure, it's okay. Mommy's here. His crying gradually subsided into soft whimpers. Leo let out a sigh of relief and patted my head. Wives always know best. He then playfully poked the air where Ben had been. You ungrateful little brat, not even recognizing your own father. I swatted his hand away. So childish, I muttered. You're almost 30 and you're still picking fights with a baby. This warm, ordinary scene was like a knife to Daniel's eyes. A vein throbbed at his temple. Clara, haven't you acted enough? He demanded. Hearing his voice and thinking about how he'd made Ben cry, I felt a surge of irritation. Haven't you had enough of your tantrum? I shot back. Leo turned around, slightly lifting the brim of his hat. Honey, do you know this man? Daniel looked at Leo, his eyes full of malice. Sensing the hostile gaze, Leo straightened up, and the friendly aura around him instantly turned icy. He looked Daniel up and down slowly before speaking. Clara, he's not really your husband, is he? How much must you hate me to hire someone to deceive me? You even covered his face so thoroughly, afraid I'd recognize him. Is the child in your arms just another prop? Before I could speak, Leo stepped in front of me, shielding me and Ben from view. His playful tone was gone, replaced by a cold severity. Sir, are you a lunatic who just escaped from a mental hospital? He said it with such deadpan seriousness that it enraged Daniel, who gritted his teeth. What did you say? Leo let out a light chuckle. I'm surprised you still don't understand plain English. Sir, we don't have time for you. The food at home is getting cold, and I can't stand the thought of my wife eating a cold dinner. Daniel's eyes grew colder as he shoved Leo aside. Clara, we need to talk. The next second, Leo had him by the collar, pinning him against a nearby pillar so effortlessly that Daniel was left completely defenseless. Still, his words were defiant. Clara, is this the actor you found? Not only is he ugly, but he's also incredibly rude. But then he froze. Leo had taken out his phone and made a call. Director Miller, it's me, Leo Hayes. There's someone from your hospital here named Daniel Vance. Yes, please schedule him for a surgery, the kind that starts in 10 minutes. Daniel's eyes widened. Leo Hayes? Could it be? Impossible. Clara would never know someone that famous. But the next second, the phone in his own pocket began to ring. He hung it up, his face pale with disbelief. Leo loosened his grip on Daniel's collar and sprayed a bit of hand sanitizer onto his palms. As we were about to turn and leave, Daniel called out from behind us. Did you know Clara proposed to me more than once? Leo paused for just a fraction of a second before wrapping his arm around my waist and continuing to walk. But despite his composed demeanor, the sudden tightening of his hand betrayed his true feelings. I let out a long sigh. To make sure my waist survived the night, it was better to settle this once and for all. I pushed our son into Leo's arms, then walked back to Daniel. Under his burning, jealous gaze, I slapped him hard across the face. He touched the corner of his mouth and saw blood on his fingertips. His face was a mask of disbelief. Clara, you hit me. His eyes were brimming with sorrow. Yes, I said calmly. This slap is for scaring my son. And yes, I did propose to you, but who hasn't been foolish and blind a few times when they were young? Thanks to you leaving, I was able to meet my wonderful husband. I also forgot to mention earlier that new ring you bought is still too small. It's not even worth what my husband earns in 10 minutes. Lastly, my husband wears a mask not because he's ugly, but to protect me and our child from public attention. That's something a self-centered person like you would never understand. Daniel, if you harass us again, the consequences will be more severe than just getting scheduled for an extra surgery. It wasn't easy for you to get into University Central Hospital, was it? That last sentence was a clear warning. Daniel seemed stunned, staring blankly at the floor. After a long moment, he finally managed to speak. Clara, do you really hate me that much? Yes, I said. I don't just dislike you, I hate you. Now get away from me. After saying that, I turned, ran back to Leo, took his hand, and walked away. Honey, Leo cooed, leaning close. You love me so much. Hearing his teasing tone, I finally let out a breath of relief. It seemed my poor back would be spared tonight. I never expected to be tormented even more thoroughly later. It was a miscalculation on my part. I thought my harsh words that day would finally make him give up, but I never imagined he would actually show up at one of my university lectures. Since I could no longer practice medicine, I had turned to teaching, shifting my focus from saving lives myself to teaching others how to do it. It had only been a few days, but he looked even more haggard with dark circles under his eyes. Throughout the lecture, his gaze never left me. By the time it was over, only the two of us were left in the large hall. He slowly walked down the steps towards me, each footstep echoing ominously. Daniel, what exactly are you trying to do? He stopped a few feet away, his expression dark. I just want to ask why you stopped being a doctor. Hearing this, I smiled without humor and held up my right hand, showing him the faint silvery scar on my wrist. Have you forgotten? You told me to reflect on my actions. This is the result of that reflection. Realization dawned on him, and he staggered back 3 steps, repeating, How could this be? Over and over. I didn't know it would turn out like that. I just thought, since she was a woman, hitting you a few times wouldn't do any real damage. A single careless assumption had destroyed the first half of my life's work. That year, after learning I could never perform surgery again, I fell into a deep depression and had to take antidepressants for 2 years. At the thought, the weariness in my heart turned into a wave of nausea. Daniel, if you don't want another slap, get out of my sight now. His body stiffened. I'm sorry, he said. Actually, I came today to apologize. After what you said at the airport, I went back and found that anesthesiologist. I asked her what really happened back then. She admitted that she was following Sarah's instructions. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I truly didn't know. Listening to him repeat his apology, I felt nothing. You remember what I said at the airport, but have you forgotten that I also said a delayed apology is meaningless? Or do you really think your flimsy apology now can fix my hand? He glanced at the scar on my wrist and a flash of pain crossed his eyes. Clara, can't you give me another chance? Didn't you say that everyone makes mistakes when they're young? I was deceived by Sarah back then. She was always such a good, sweet girl in college. I never thought she could become so wicked. Slap. Another stinging slap landed on his face. Daniel, you can go ask the anesthesiologist about it now, but why couldn't you have done it back then? Was it because you couldn't, or because you wouldn't? He shook his head frantically, gripping my arm. At the time, I suddenly remembered all those liquor bottles in the fridge at home. You never used to drink, but you started drinking so much during that period. Daniel, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Do you know why I only started drinking during that period? He looked up at me, confused. I pulled my hand away from his grasp. I was drinking because I was heartbroken. Every single one of those bottles had your name on it. After saying that, I picked up my bag and walked towards the door. I heard a thud behind me. Daniel had dropped to his knees. His voice was cracked with emotion. Clara, I really do love you. You have no idea how I've lived these past 3 years. Every minute, every second without you has been unbearable. Hearing his sorrowful words, I still didn't turn back. I just paused at the door. Daniel, I said, did you truly never have feelings for Sarah? That ring I threw in the drawer? It wasn't because I was angry or because the diamond was too small. It was because it was too big. Even if I had wanted to wear it, it would have slipped right off my finger. You're not a fool. You should understand what that means. So please don't disturb my life again. That final warning I gave you at the airport still stands. With that, I left. I didn't see the look on his face, but the raw, wailing sobs that echoed down the empty hallway told me everything I needed to know. Outside the building, a familiar Ferrari was parked at the curb. The moment I got in, the atmosphere felt tense. Leo was staring straight ahead, his jaw tight. Honey? I said softly. Aren't you going to help me with my seatbelt? He grunted in response, turning to lean over and pull the strap across me. The next second, I wrapped my arms around him in a tight hug. Honey, what's wrong? He asked, his ears turning red as he fastened my seatbelt, though his expression remained stormy. I saw him go into the school, he said, his voice low. Did he come to harass you again? Yes, I admitted. Hearing my confirmation, the angry speech Leo had clearly been preparing got stuck in his throat. What? What did he say then? The same old things as last time, I said, begging for forgiveness, saying he wants to marry me. Leo snorted, his eyes full of mockery. Still the same old tricks? It's pathetic. He glanced at me. And what about you? What did you say? I looked at his hands, which were gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. A hint of amusement rose in me. I said I'd think about it. As soon as the words left my mouth, a large hand gripped my chin, turning my face towards him. Say that again. I said, I whispered, leaning in, Leo, I love you. Only you. If you hadn't been there for me when I had nothing, I probably would have given up on myself. After all, I once gave up everything for Daniel. My voice broke into a sob. A pair of warm lips silenced me. It was a long time before he finally pulled away. Chatterbox, he murmured against my forehead. I asked you to repeat 3 words, and you gave me a whole speech. His tone was light, but I knew he had been deeply unsettled since the moment he first saw Daniel. He was always trying to appear indifferent, but I'd seen him smoking by the window late at night. And I'd heard him muttering nonsense to our son while reading cheesy romance novels, worrying about what would happen if his wife's first love came back and she didn't want him anymore. He was so ridiculously adorable. What are you thinking about? He asked, his eyes searching mine. Who's on your mind? The one right in front of my eyes. I don't believe you, he said, a playful glint in his eye. So prove it to me. With that, he pulled a whole strip of condoms from the car's storage compartment. Use all of these and then I'll believe you. My face flushed red as I hastily pushed him away. We're in the car, I hissed. So what? He grinned. This isn't some cheap apartment complex like that poor guy lives in. This is our villa. We have a private garage. And so I compromised, and he believed me. From that day on, Daniel never came looking for me again. I don't know if it was because his heart was finally broken for good, or if Leo's threats had scared him off. Either way, I was relieved. I later heard through the grapevine that he had spent a lot of money hiring private investigators to track down Sarah Jennings. I don't know the details of what happened, only that she ended up hospitalized with severe injuries. I didn't think much about it. As long as they stayed out of my life, I didn't care. 3 months later, on my birthday, I found a cup of coffee and a small slice of cake sitting on my doorstep. A heart-shaped sticky note was attached to the cup. It read, Happy birthday. May you have a lifetime of happiness. I crumpled the note in my hand and tossed it, along with the cake and coffee, into the trash can. Then I turned and ran back inside towards my own happiness.